Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of the X's and O's Knicks Film School Extravaganza live stream. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Not after a loss, after a 9-1 stretch. That's what it's following. I am joined, as always, by the great, the detail junkie himself, the defender of Julius himself. May he come back soon. He is DJ Zullo. What is up, my friend? How are things?
Things are good. Just saw a picture of Julius on, I think it was Kendra's Instagram without the sling. So maybe good sign, maybe means nothing, probably means nothing. But yes, looking forward to getting 30 back healthy. But he is just one of many Knicks health concerns, which we will get into. But always happy to be here with you. How you been? Everything good? We haven't talked in a while. And
haven't talked in a while,
at least. And Knicks have done a lot of winning since. How you been?
Yeah, I'm good. The X's and O's have changed with the personnel, right? So there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about what has changed, both post Anunoby trade and then post all these injuries. There's a lot to get into in terms of like lineups, personnel, strategies, and I'm sure we'll be able to cover it all with our friends asking questions throughout. Yeah, we had an amazing event Saturday night. I'm sorry you couldn't be there. I would have loved to actually meet you in person. That would have been dope. But I know
one day.
It's a bit of a trip for you.
Yeah.
But we had a good time, and we just went through. Just so everybody's aware, it'll be posted, I think, on our YouTube channel. We just posted a film review of all the plays in that 7-minute scoreless stretch, as painful as it was to go through. Kind of going through the film play by play and assessing kind of where the Knicks could have improved, what sets could they be running, what are the things they could really execute better to create some better looks, and then also just highlighting the challenges of the lineups that are being played and the personnel that's available. So I had a great time doing that with you. Everyone should keep an eye out for that posting, I assume, in the morning. So you'll have that for your lunch break tomorrow, whatever it is, or commute in. But yeah, I'm doing well, and I'm excited to get into it. I guess I'll just pitch it to you. Any kind of big picture thoughts? Got a game against Memphis. It looks like OG will be out again. Grimes will be out again. Aside from just like the injury concerns that exist, any thoughts about the game against Memphis or going forward?
Well, I just a big picture. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know you share this feeling. Just watching Jalen Brunson do his thing over these past few weeks. I mean, since he came here as a Knick, but he's gone to a new level. The Indiana game was like the culmination of like how we as fans and him, the bond that now exists between fan and player is really significant. But just as someone who like really loves the craft of basketball, he's on the mountaintop right now in terms of his ability to generate offense for himself at his size, with some, athletic disadvantages, but also some advantages, which we talked about the last time we were on in terms of his short area burst and his balance and his flexibility. But just watching him has been just a stunning experience. He's a phenomenal player, obviously, but there was that moment in the Laker game where it's sort of the fatigue, the responsibility, and then just some of the issues the Knicks' current alignment of healthy players present. And then when you top off this thing with like a great defensive team when they're on their P's and Q's, and that's the Lakers, and they're in for a tough night. But I feel good about where they are in general. I feel like, Randle aside, I feel like you get OG and Anunoby back eventually. I think this team is deep enough and good enough to be one of the top 4 seeds in the East. And you kind of go from there. Their ceiling obviously depends on the health of Julius, but a lot of good questions I'm sure we're going to get to. There's a lot to sort of sink our teeth into. So just ready to make that happen. It's been a fun season. It's been a sort of it hasn't been an easy season. There's been a lot of like things to sort of like really dive into and debate. And I'm looking forward to doing that with you.
All right, let's get right into it then. So we got APJP on the P's and Q's. We appreciate you, man. And let's get to some chats. Let's do it. All right, Hamdi, thank you for the generous contribution, my friend. We appreciate it. Hamdi says, good evening, gentlemen. With regards to Brogdon, what's the true gap between Deuce and Brogdon? I liked him in past seasons, but I feel he has lost a step this year and is not the same player. What are your thoughts there, DJ?
He has lost a step. I think that shows up in his ability to get to the rim. His frequency of rim attempts has gone down, I think, 3 straight years. He was at a point a really good on the ball defensive player that is really dried up. I feel like he is okay in that area, but he's not someone that's going to lift your defense. But what has maintained is that he is still a phenomenal shooter, and the Knicks really could use that right now. And while Deuce has shot the ball really well, I mean his 3-point percentage, I didn't look at it after the Laker game, but it's got to be in the mid 40s or close to it in terms of the percentage. But Brogdon as the guy that you could run DHOs with, he could get into the mid range and make something happen. Deuce really hasn't developed that part of his game. In terms of offensive players, which to me is the big consideration here, I feel like there is a giant gap between where Brogdon is now and where Deuce is. Now, you can talk about the defense, and it is certainly fair where Deuce is going to make an impact on that end that Brogdon just can't get to. But in terms of the offense, I feel like there is a pretty wide gap, and this is still an offensive league. You got to put the ball in the basket, and Brogdon, he can still do that, and the shooting touch is still there. He's open, he's going to make a shot. He can get again. You watched him run DHOs with Portland. He could do the same thing with Hartenstein. It gives him that little bit of an ability to get downhill and get into that mid range, and he's got a really good touch in that area. So, in terms of his versatility, I think you can probably play him with Brunson against. There's probably some teams you just can't do that, especially in the fourth quarter. But there's some teams you probably can get away with it. To me, overall, there's a pretty big gap between where Deuce is now and where Brogdon is. But then you have to talk about you're going to have to pay to get Brogdon. He's not going to be cheap, so you're going to have to pay something to get him. So, but as terms of players, I think there's a pretty big difference between the two of them right now.
Yeah, I mean, Deuce is shooting 45% from three. Brogdon's at 41. I think if you take into account Brogdon's difficulty, shoots a lot of off the dribble threes. And then, forgetting about the pure percentages, just like obviously the respect that Brogdon will garner as a shooter, even though Deuce has shot it great this year. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're yet at a point where defenses are going to be as respectful and have the same gravity as for a very proven shooter for years in Malcolm Brogdon. So even as a shooter, I still think there's a gap in terms of what effect that has on your overall team. And then look how, Deuce right now, when he actually has the primary responsibility of handling the ball, it's a bit of a mess. If we're being honest, how often does it take him a long time to get into a set, struggles with his handle, dribbles around for too long without getting off the ball. He's still growing in that area and has a lot of work to do. Whereas Malcolm Brogdon's just a proven, he was a really effective lead guard for many, many years, both in Milwaukee and Indiana. And then with Boston became more of a 6-man complementary player. And that's kind of where he is now in Portland, but just a really solid pick and roll player, even though he has lost that step getting to the rim. He's really good in the mid-range area. He's crafty, maintaining his dribble, finding the pocket pass, point guard stuff that he just is good at because he's a pro's pro. So there is a gap. And although the defensive gap is also there, Brogdon is physical and can guard up. Now he's strong. And even though I think he's not nearly as quick laterally as Deuce is on the ball, assuming they have, again, if Grimes was out in the deal, that becomes an issue because who's guarding at the point of attack? Maybe you have Josh Hart now guarding at the point of attack. If you could have Grimes there and Brogdon kind of guarding secondary third guys, I think you're fine. If Grimes goes out, then there's a real concern there with your second unit as to who the heck is guarding the ball. But there is still, I think, a sizable gap between Deuce and Brogdon to answer the question.
Yeah. And then just to kind of read the tea leaves of where the rumors are, it doesn't feel like Brogdon is the most likely to come here. It feels like Bruce Brown, from what I'm gathering, is the more likely player. Maybe we'll get a Bruce Brown question as we move along here, but I don't get the sense that Brogdon is the most likely guard to be coming to the Knicks, but I do like the fit in general. He's averaging 20 points per 75 possessions. I mean, and doing it relatively efficiently. I mean, his assist rate, by the way, is up towards 30%, which is got to be one of the highest of his career. Like he's a quality, good start. You know, he's playing like a good starting point guard. Obviously, he's not going to be that with the Knicks, but it's a big upgrade. And Deuce is going to be a really good player for, I think, many years, but just not at
Let's
the
put it this
level
way, right? He even though we all think Emmanuel quickly should have won the award, he was a very qualified sixth man of the year. And he's
100%.
not gotten and he hasn't gotten worse. Like he's still really good. So like
he's still good.
Deuce is not that.
He's not that. Now the other issue with Brogdon is like you have a team that's just banged up. Can you bring in another guy that every year is banged up? So even though he's healthy now, what is the percentage chance that Brogdon is going to be healthy come May and June?
To me, that depends on what goes out. Because if it's Fournier and pick and a pick or picks, then you're replacing him with a guy who doesn't play. So that's fine. Like obviously you need him to produce, but like in terms of like you're doing it now without that player.
Right.
If Grimes goes out in the deal, then that becomes obviously a larger issue with having healthy bodies, and the injury concern is real. And this is a guy that's struggled to pass physicals in the past. So all right, cool. Thanks, Hamdi. Way to get us started off. What do we got next, Justin? Hamdi's back. We appreciate it, man. DJ, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate you contributing. And the question is, do you feel Sims needs to do a better job staying on his feet? I actually like him defensively and feel he has improved since last year. Benji, what do you think?
Yes, I thought he was extremely jumpy in the Laker game. Worse than he's been in a while. Just a little anxious, got caught up in the air a few times. Yeah, I mean, it's a good observation. He needs to do a better job staying on his feet. I also like him defensively, and I also feel like he's improved from last year. But the Laker game was definitely a struggle, and they're going to look right now. They need him to provide really solid backup minutes, which I think he's capable of.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo everything you said. Thought he struggled in the Laker game, but as someone who has been more of a skeptic of him as just a rotation player going forward, I feel like his minutes this year have been good. He is certain, and it's like his jumping ability always stands out as like his number one athletic trait. But the more I watch him, it's like his feet laterally are so good. And I know that he's not in the scheme that is going to necessarily tap into that all the time, but there have been occasions where he's switched out, or he's hard hedged, or even at the level, and it just allows him to show his ability to move his feet. He can close on, if he's switching, he can get a good close. I mean, there's just he has certain traits athletically that are just 99th percentile.
Yeah.
But he's small, and he can be a little jumpy and skittish, especially against, I imagine, against guys like Anthony Davis, who's towers over him. So he probably feels like he needs to sort of like preemptively make his decision to defend a shot because of the height disadvantage. But he's been good this year, and to me he's been good enough to where I could feel confident, like going forward, the Knicks could have a guy that can, be close, if he's not your full-time backup, but just being on the roster and being the guy that can, if there's an injury, you can play him and feel okay in those minutes. And when he's with a team that has more scoring and guys that can make plays, he fits better. Last night, I mean, in the Laker game where he's playing with three other non-shooters, non-scorers, it's going to be a struggle, but I feel like he has been better this year. So I would agree wholeheartedly with Hamdi M.
Yeah, I know it's not the question, but offensively, he's slowly showing you things, right? A couple of big time moves lately that kind of took us by surprise. I know Thibs has been quoted as saying he has got more in the bag defensively than he showed. And look, I think his offensive rebound. Last time I checked, his offensive rebound percentage is still very high, so he's doing the thing that New York centers are expected to do. And he's a decent screener. So yeah, overall, I don't have many complaints about Jericho Sims. I think he's mostly done his job, that Laker game notwithstanding. Thanks, Andy. Ben, what's up, Ben Kingurvey? Always good to hear from you, my friend. How much of the Precious explosion has been driven by the change in system from Toronto to New York? Which changes in role have best accommodated his talents and skill deficits? That's a great question. Beautifully phrased, Ben. DJ, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would just say that there's been, I think it's more of what the Knicks prioritize. They're really good at It's like the concept of like offensive rebound tagging, where you're not necessarily just crashing without any sort of like care about your transition defense. So if you watch the Knicks crash, they're always going to like sort of get into so if you have someone that's boxing you out, you get behind them, you sort of like push them under the rim. So it has like two benefits of like getting you closer to the offensive rebound, but also you're still in position to get back in transition. So he's really good at doing that. And to me, like his strength really, I just didn't expect him to show his strength as well as he does. Like he really gets into guys that can move them. And then he's got decent enough first jump to really get to these offensive rebounds. So to me, it's like the Knicks there's something about the way the Knicks teach offensive rebounding. And to me, it's part of it is like they prioritize it. And it's something where if you don't do it, you don't play. So that concept, and not every team is built that way. There are plenty of teams in the NBA that they want you to get back on defense, and that is like the priority. And they don't want to send two and three guys to the offensive boards, but the Knicks do that in a way that is still maintaining their balance of transition defense, because they're always staying in between, they're always going to be in between the other rim, the rim you're defending, and the opponent's rim. They're always in good position to do that. Achua is really taken to that. Now, there's stuff in the pick and roll coverages where I don't think this is like his best defense to sort of like play under. But if you look at him as a 4, that's to me is like, I know LeBron scored a bunch. To me, he was like so cognizant of keeping him away from the middle, where he was really shading him to his left. And LeBron just hit a bunch of like falling away, fadeaway jump shots going that way. You live with it because you kept him out of the middle. But to me, his defense as a 4-man has been really good. And when Thibs has allowed him to switch and really get into guys when he's been the 5-man in the pick and roll coverage, it's been really solid. But to me, it's like offensive rebounding for a Knick big is just, even for the 4 and the 5, is something you have. It's a non-starter. You don't play if you can't do it. And it's tapped into a skill that he had. If you read his scouting reports coming out of Memphis, it was all the rage was like his ability, his motor, and his offensive rebounding. And to me, it's been, you've called him a revelation as a rebounder. To me, it's like a great word to describe like how good he's been rebounding the ball on the offensive glass. I think he's earned like a spot for the rest of the year. Obviously not in the with the minutes and the offensive responsibility of late, but he's a solid rotation big man. And then Thibs has a way of coaxing the best out of some of these like high motor, maybe low skilled, but like really like hardworking 4s and 5s. Precious seems to be on his way to continuing that trend.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's popped as a 4. I think a lot of the success has come when he was moved to the 4 out of necessity. I don't think that's a coincidence. He is a very undersized 5. And the ability to he's not now the primary crasher of the offensive glass. He's kind of coming from the corners and able to use his motor and speed to get around guys and surprise guys and kind of get boards that way, as opposed to like the Hartenstein and even Sims to an extent, who can kind of lean on you and just push you out and then jump over you. So that's helped. With Toronto, they had so many like 6'8" to 6'9" guys. Like he was a 4, he was a 5, he was both. He was interchangeable with a bunch of guys. But I would push back a little bit on the idea that he's been the explosion. Like offensively, he's been pretty poor. Other than offensive rebounding with the Knicks, he's been worse in a lot of ways with the Knicks. He hasn't made any shots. Obviously, he was making 29% of threes, which is bad, but at least it's something. He's made like 14% with the Knicks, so that hurts. And he's just not a very good offensive player. I hate to pour a lot of cold water on this. Like it's been a lot. Look, he's played a gazillion minutes. So if there's counting stats to talk about, a lot of that has to do with just the amount of minutes he's playing. And I do think the motor and energy he's brought has been a big deal for this team. And on the defensive end, like again, being at the 4 has allowed his kind of one-on-one skills to pop. And he's guarded guys like Bridges and Siakam and Markkanen and LeBron like generally very well. He's got really good feet and really good size, and he's good at that. So the offensive rebounding for sure has been huge. The defense I think has been really good. The offense is not good. Hasn't been good with the Knicks. Was a little bit better with the Raptors. The usage is way down, which I think is fine. But like he hasn't made a lot of shots anywhere. So I'll push back a little bit. And like,
Yeah.
honestly, ultimately, with all the rage, and I love what he's done, and he's a great piece of depth for this team. Do I think he should be in like the playoff rotation? No, I don't think so. I think even if Mitch isn't back, but you get Randle back and everyone else is healthy.
So who's your 5? Backing up Hartenstein?
Sims.
Really?
I think so. I don't trust Precious
against. Okay.
Now, maybe depend. Look.
Now let's. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it adds some versatility that you can go to Precious and be a little more switchable, maybe, and maybe you can go 3-headed monster at times at the center position. But like he's not as good at the rim as Sims. He's not a lob threat like Sims. Like, what is he giving you at the 5 offensively, other than maybe offensive rebounding?
I think he's better offensive. He's a better offensive rebounder. I think that's
at the 5. I'm not so sure. At the 5, I'm not so sure. I don't think I agree.
Okay, so I got to look back. So Precious played in the Miami game. Was that? I'm trying to think. That was more 5 for Precious, right? In that game.
I don't remember the individual.
So I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
It's a lot has happened. Look, Julius, he gets a lot of his offensive rebounding from the 4, crashing late, using his speed, quickness. So, I mean, it's certainly like, it makes sense that he would be a more dominant offensive rebounder at that spot. So certainly I would say it's an open question. Who's the better offensive rebounder? If you're going to say Sims is because of his girth and his strength and his vertical leaping ability, totally fair. I talked
Here's what I'll say, like career. So I mean, not that offensive rebounding percentage is everything, but like Sims has been, his first 2 years was over 12%. This year it's down to like 10.8, I think. Precious this is the highest it's ever been just with this Knicks stint. With the Raptors, it was at 10.5. Now it's at 11.9. So it's close this year. Sims reached heights the previous 2 years that are higher than Precious has ever achieved. But yeah, okay, it's close. Let's say it's close.
Yeah. And I would say a little bit of that is probably, like I talk about the priority, the next place on that. So let's see Precious long-term, if he's going to be here, but like through a full season where that number sort of lands. Now I just would say, like, against certain teams, and you talk about the 3-headed monster. So maybe there is like is he a better matchup against Bam Adebayo if there's like a Miami series or Indiana? So there's probably some matchups. In Milwaukee, you may not want him to see the floor as a 5.
Right.
I can see it go both ways. Now, who knows if he's going to be healthy or not? But I've seen games where he's guarded Embiid really well. Better than Sims has ever guarded him, because he just is able to keep his hands away, sort of like contest late, but he doesn't foul him as readily as some guys. So I've liked what I've seen there, but certainly up for debate. Neither one of these guys are certainly you can't like Precious at the 4. If Josh Hart is like an important part of your rotation, he's a non-starter. You can't play those two together in the playoffs. Like, there's no way, right? So it has to be at the 5. Yep.
And then it's just a question of whether you like him or Sims better. And I could see it both ways, and I could maybe see the matchup dependent, which I think is great. Like, and both guys are, I think, quality rotation guys that can give you some minutes. So that's a good thing. And the depth is important, and people will get hurt and there will be foul trouble, right? So like, having the extra depth is only a good thing. And like, he's shown that, right? He's shown enough that he can be an important depth piece and give you a lot of energy and a lot of quality rebounding. So I'm with you. I don't think we really disagree. It's just a matter of like, who's the priority backup big, but I guess I'm just pushing back a little bit on like I don't know if it's been a Precious explosion. I think the Indiana game was awesome, and he got a lot of props for it, rightfully so. But certainly not offensively. It hasn't been.
I was reading a little sarcasm in the chat.
That's
fair. So maybe there's a little there. Now I will say, just to kind of wrap the bow on the center talk. So Fred tweeted, Fred Katz, that we are at the 8-week mark regarding Mitch.
Yeah, the Mitch. Yeah.
So obviously, I don't think there's been an update. So maybe Thibs before tomorrow will sort of like give us an update on where he is. But just talking through this, it does make me a little nervous that we are having this discussion about the minutes of the backup center spot, which to me was always like the strength of the team, of having like 48 minutes of like really good rim protection and all center play. Mitch is still, even though I keep forgetting he's like going to come back eventually. So it would be nice to sort of like get some sort of clarity on that. And I wonder if the team is trying to figure out if they can, if Mitch is going to be, if they're a little more weary of where Mitch is health wise, are they at the point where they've seen enough of Sims and Precious and like, all right, we have to like get another body in here to maybe we need to improve those 10, 15 minutes a night and more if like, there's an injury.
I don't think, I mean, the indication, like, at least none of the rumors so far have been that they're looking at a center, which is interesting. And if I had to guess, and I don't think they're going to use a ton of assets here. Like, I think at most, it'll be protected picks. One of the picks this year, whether theirs or Dallas, like they're not gonna go into the future of their own picks here, right? So it's like they're only gonna make one move, I think, unless they get something real cheap or buyout market type. Like you could throw a second at it, and it's like some like kind of flyer. But like one real player is gonna come in. I don't think two. And if that's the case, then I think they're going to prioritize the ball handler. But maybe, I mean, we'll see. That Leon keep us guessing. All right, thanks, Ben.
Yes, thank you, Ben. Andrew P. Hey guys, the ball doesn't stick without him. Everyone's connected on defense without him.
Oh boy,
no attitude issues without him. Aren't they better without him? With OG and say Brogdon, despite his scoring.
Oh boy, DJ, I'm going to start. No, don't go.
Okay,
I'm going to let you go second here. I'm going to let you go second. I'm going to let the defender of Julius. You know what? Forget it. I am going to let the defender of Julius take this one. Let him have it, DJ. Let Andrew P have it. Go.
Listen,
the floor is yours.
If you are a fan of Jalen Brunson, and I imagine Andrew P is a fan of Jalen Brunson, he wants Jalen Brunson to succeed.
I'm muting.
He wants Jalen Brunson to like continue this like quasi MVP campaign, all NBA campaign. If you want this to happen, you need this man to have some help. Now, I just tweeted just a few hours ago, 61% of Jalen Brunson threes were assisted by Julius Randle when Julius is on the floor. 44% of Jalen Brunson threes are assisted when Julius Randle is off the floor. So that difference right there, that 17% gap. Now, Jalen is still going to get threes up, but you know what? He's going to have to work a lot harder. These are going to be like tougher pull-ups. These are going to be shots where he's going to be forcing the issue a little more. Now, all those threes that Julius would generate where he's backing down and you're probably looking at the screen, Andrew, and like, oh, Julius, what? You're just holding the ball. You're dribbling. Nothing's happening. The only thing that's happening, Andrew, is that 5 guys are converging on him. And you know what else is happening? Jalen is just meandering around the 3-point line, just waiting casually, maybe sweating, maybe not, kind of check, making sure his shoelaces are tied perfectly. And he's going to catch that ball in perfect rhythm. And you know what? He's one of the best catch and shoot 3-point shooters in the entire NBA. And you know what I like? I like Jalen Brunson catching the ball and shooting without any other worry in the world. And that only happens, Andrew P., when number 30 is on the floor. So please, you may not like him as a player. And I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but just respect what he does for the guys that you do like. Because I can tell you this, if you ask Jalen Brunson, if you ask OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, any other Nick, Dante DiVincenzo, they need 30 back and they need him back soon. So if I would just say that to you, sir, that the Knicks players that you are presumably fans of, they want him back and they want him back soon. And they know they need him. And if this team is going to reach the heights that maybe I certainly think they can get to, they need him back and they need him back playing well. So I will just say that we need Julius Randle to be appreciated. And it would be a shame in some regard that it's going to take the shoulder injury that may or may not end his season for a lot of fans to sort of realize how good he is.
Hold up. Let him cook. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a fair question as it pertains to the defense. Like here, first point, everyone's connected on defense without him. If the replacement is Josh Hart or it's Precious Achiuwa, who are both better, more attentive, harder working defenders, then yeah, the defense does look better. I think that's absolutely correct.
100%.
But this team cannot reach the ceiling right now as constructed without Julius Randle's offense. Jalen Brunson cannot do all this. I mean, now Julius has to show something in the playoffs. And if it's the case that Julius stinks in the playoffs, then Andrew P., you know what? You're right at the end of the day. But honestly, I'm not sure Jalen Brunson can get through the regular season without Julius Randle. Like, this is brutal, what he has to go through every night. So adding Brogdon would help. It's good to your point. So, everything DJ said is right. To add to give you a little bit of credit, Andrew, I would say the defense point is correct.
Yeah.
And Julius has to show it in the playoffs offensively, but like what he brings on offense is unquestionably invaluable to this team. Like, he creates the best 3-pointers for this team night in, night out. You see it in real time. You're watching it. Like, it's hard for this team to generate good threes without Julius Randle, and they need to generate good threes to win. So yeah.
And listen, the defense, I can't debate it, argue against it. I've been one of the many that have posted the Julius, who's he guarding? Who's he trying to guard? Is he guarding anyone? What's happening here? It is now, I will say in Julius's defense, I feel like those plays have become sort of like cliche. Like I'm sure you could find those possessions from a lot of guys that are generating a lot of energy loss on the offensive end. But in terms of the identity, I feel like this does get talked about some, but maybe not as much as it should. The identity of the Knicks is, yes, on the defensive end, how they play and how hard they play and how physical they are. But part of that physicality also is on the offensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no player on the Knicks roster that generates the amount of force as Julius Randle. Now, I can only imagine what it's like to get his shoulder into you 16, 17 times in a game and it not having a negative benefit on your body by the fourth quarter. That matters. He has changed his game to the point where he is going to inflict pain onto you for 36 minutes a night. That matters. The Knicks have lost that, not only the gravity and what he could do as a passer to 3-point shooters and all that. They've lost that ability to sort of like pound on teams. It's just, they don't have a guy that could sort of like do it in that manner in the same way. So that's also something to consider. But Benjy, you're right about the playoffs. You look at his game log, there's maybe 4 good ones in 3 playoff series, 3 good games, 4 good games. If that, there's not many. He's going to have to show it. There's been a health issue in some of them, but he's going to have to prove it. It's going to be a shame that he's probably not going to go into this playoff healthy, but I can't excuse any more poor performance there. So if he's not going to play well in the playoffs again, it might just be who he is as a player. But in terms of the regular season, you talked about it. They need to get there first. They need a seed high enough to hopefully get out of the Boston side of the bracket and have a better chance of really making some noise.
And that, my friends, is why we call him the defender of Julius. Next question. Hamdi, you're the man. Thanks, man. We appreciate it. Really do. Go ahead, DJ.
Yeah. Thoughts on Jordan Clarkson as a fit? Not sure how his defense is. Thibs or TBS? Is there a
to be sure? To be sure?
No, yeah, no, we're not. Yeah, you're not sure how his defense is going to be. Fair question, but can he put up 30 on a hot shooting night? Benjy, Jordan Clarkson. We didn't talk much about him. What do you think?
Yeah, he can put up 30 on a hot shooting night. He's done it countless times in his career. His defense, I would be untruthful to say that I am like locked in on Jordan Clarkson's defense on a night-to-night basis. I do believe his defense has improved in Utah from where it was in the past, but he is not. It will never be. Cannot be his strong suit. He will be a liability there. He's small. He is thin, so he's just limited. I think his attention and his attention detail there kind of goes in and out. Never been his strength. I don't love the fit offensively, honestly, either, because I think because of what he's going to cost, you really want someone who doesn't only have to play without Brunson. And I don't really think I don't think it's viable, and Thibs will certainly not think it's viable to play Brunson, Clarkson lineups for any time. Like, I don't think that's a lineup people play in the playoffs. In which case, you're going to spend a conditional, a protected first round pick, or you're going to spend Grimes, whatever, on Jordan Clarkson to play literally 9 minutes in the playoffs. Like, that doesn't seem like a smart idea, which is why I always thought that Brogdon was the better fit, because he can definitely slot next to Brunson for some time I think Bruce Brown in that way makes more sense, although he's not giving you the creation ability, but as someone who obviously can play in any lineup, that always made more sense to me. At this, like, if you're going to get a guy who's only going to play those 9 minutes, it's going to be a guy like, they're not going to get him, but like a Tyus Jones or like, I don't know, Jordan McLaughlin, or like someone who's really, he's going to be cheaper and you don't mind playing him 10 minutes a night, but like, that's not Clarkson. I don't know if you agree, DJ.
Yeah. I don't look in terms of an offensive fit. He's more of a shot maker than a great shooter. Like, he's never been like a high efficiency player from three, but he's really dynamic getting downhill and getting into sort of that intermediate area. His floater's really good. He's a really good offensive player and he could pass the ball. I think that ability of him as a passer really pops and is underrated, and I think he can help someone. I just don't think and you talked about the cost. All the reporting suggests that the Jazz are really trying to get like a significant piece, whether it's a really good draft pick or a good young player. You're not going to get him for what Tyus Jones is going to ultimately go for. It's going to be a different tier of cost here. So to me, that, for all the reasons you talked about, Thibs is not going to play him with Brunson for stretches of games, especially not in the playoffs. So why are you spending the capital to get a guy that's going to be, at most 12 minutes a night? It doesn't make a lot of sense, but he's going to help some team, because I feel like
if they move him, which I'm not positive they will.
Right. If they move him, I feel like he's, I compare him to like Terry Rozier in terms of like that different player, but that quality of offensive player where, he's going to be streaky, but there's going to be nights where, oh my God, is he really scoring 35 tonight? And you're like, you look up and that's like, he's got
Miami's still waiting for that night, but yes, theoretically,
they're still waiting. They can keep waiting for the rest of the year for all I'm concerned, but he's a good player, but just for all the reasons we talked about, just not the right fit for this Knicks roster.
I don't know if we'll get this question, but what are your thoughts on Sexton as opposed to Clarkson, as someone who's also been rumored to be available?
So he's grown on me a lot, but I feel like it's the same issues, right? Like I feel like he's probably worse defensively. He's smaller.
He's a bit tougher, but like, I'm not sure if that's just like he's physical.
Is it fake toughness?
There's some fake toughness, but he's a physical defender. Like, he's given Brunson, he's at least frustrated Brunson. Now, the first game especially, I thought he frustrated Brunson. Now, sometimes it gets like silly physical. Right. But like, hopefully, I think the Knicks, like, kind of the culture will kind of rein that in a little bit. But he's a physical, tough defender at times on the ball. Maybe you can get away with kind of playing him up a little bit. But yeah, does seem like a similar issue. Plus the fact that I think Jalen Brunson hates his guts. Mm-hmm. So based on the way that we decide on our personnel with the Knicks, which is basically Jalen Brunson's friends, I don't think that they're going to go with Sexton. But
a fair point.
Thought. Thanks, Amdy. We appreciate it again, man.
Thank you so much.
Jessica Elsener. What's up, Jessica? We always appreciate hearing from you. What trade would each of you like to see that's realistic and complementary to the team/coach?
Let me take this,
please.
I have gone back and forth on this. I had should the Knicks just double down on like the grit and the grind and just get Bruce Brown in here and just like figure it out? And then I was like, oh, what if Bruce Brown was in there? We kind of talked about this in the KFS chat, like him as like Brunson getting doubled in the short roll and like how good he was in Brooklyn, kind of doing that off the Durant gravity. But the more I think about like, it's just the shooting concerns. And I know he hasn't shot well at Toronto. I just feel like I've watched enough of them, obviously with our two former Knicks over there. I've been watching some Bruce Brown recently and just curious. And it just feels like the offensive limitations just seem bigger without Durant, without Jokic sort of like being the hubs around him. So I do wonder what it looks like outside those guys. And there's some evidence like there's going to suggest that there is like a decent amount of a drop off because he does playoff guys. And it feels like he's a guy that is never going to be a great shooter and doesn't feel like he is necessarily the type of defensive player. Now he's good. He's good defensively, but I feel like there's something about him that feels a little bit like not the right guy defensively, or what he's not providing enough on that end to make up for what you're going to lose on the offensive end because of the minutes. Like if you replace Grimes with him, you take Grimes out, you're now playing Bruce Brown in those minutes. I don't think you're better off, basically, is where I'm at right now. I feel like if you take Brogdon and you're using him in the Grimes minutes, I can make a case that you're better and then Deuce minutes or whatever you figure it out. Like if you play Brogdon and the shooting is there, all the things you talked about earlier, I feel like the team could be better. I don't know if that's the case with Brown. And that to me is like where I think of where I'm landing on that. In terms of some of the other guys that have been rumored, there's been the PJ Washington noise. I've always been a fan of his. There's obviously the idea of like, is Julius more injured than they're letting on? If we're talking about, a 4 or 5 being brought in here, but in terms of some of the point guard, backcourt guys, I feel like Brogdon is my favorite fit offensively and overall for this Knicks team. So I think I would kind of land on him.
Yeah, the trade that I come back to, I think would be the best fit. Unfortunately, we haven't heard much in the way of rumors supporting this will happen, but it would be like Fournier plus either one of the protected Washington or even if it's our own pick this year because you have the Dallas pick coming or the Dallas pick or whatever, some iteration of Fournier plus one of those picks for Malcolm Brogdon is my ultimate deadline deal. I don't know if it's going to happen. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen for whatever reason. But that is, to me, the best fit for the team and the coach and the best value that you're going to get. So that's the one for me. Yeah,
it's tough right now because there seems to be like a lot of they have to be worried about if they don't replace, like if Randle is really like, if there's like a 30% chance he just doesn't play again this year because they don't know how he's going to respond to the rehab and there's just not enough time between, the injury and the trade deadline to really know. I wonder if there is like an idea of like, we have finite resources and you talked about like, maybe there is only enough for like one significant trade. Could you argue like a guy like PJ Washington is just like the bigger need right now be where this team is because you just can't get away with like Precious and offensively, and you could just like you get a Deuce to give you enough on that end, and Grimes gets back healthy, and OG's healthy, and there's enough offense.
My counter is I think I'm fine. With Hart shifting down to the 4, so that you can play, let's say Brunson, Brogdon, DiVincenzo, Hart. Now Thibs might not do that, but like to me it's more important still to find that kind of 1/2 and then slot everybody down, even if Randle's not ready, as opposed to filling the Randle role with someone who, PJ Washington is a good player. I like him too. Now, like, how long will it take for him to kind of like get fully integrated? And like, he's been in a crappy culture and with a crappy team his whole career. Like, how does that translate to like real stakes? Yeah. Brogdon's like just more of a proven entity. So I don't know. I would go that way, but it's a good point on that type of player. Wouldn't necessarily hate it, but I would proceed cautiously with a guy like Washington this late in the year.
I get it. I feel like he's just going to help someone. I've always thought that with him. The defense has never been great, but again, you talk about the system and like, how much is he really like buying in on that end? Even though he's had a good defensive coach for most of his career, but the offense, he could do a lot. Even though the shooting has never been like amazing, it looks great. I feel like he's a better shooter than maybe give him a little more space to play with better players. But just a good, solid offensive player that I feel like is just going to get moved here and play important playoff minutes for someone. Probably not the Knicks though. I think you're right. I think they're going to probably prioritize that, just supporting Brunson a little more.
All right. Thanks, Jessica, as always.
Yes. Thank you, Jess.
Hit it, DJ.
Black Alpha Mabit. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the contribution here. I mean the chat and the question.
No, it's not a contribution. I mean, it's a verbal contribution.
Just moving things along. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, recent stats show Brunson has been doubled more frequently since Randle's injury. Interesting. What adjustments on offense could the team make with the current roster to free up Brunson or take advantage?
Oh, just plug it, DJ. Just plug it. Don't even answer it. Just plug it.
The film session we just did?
Yeah.
So Benjy and I, just before this went live, we recorded about 35 minutes of the last 7 minutes of the Lakers Knicks game, where the Knicks just couldn't get a clean look at we had a couple clean looks, but basically it was trap, blitz, double Brunson for the entire second half of the fourth quarter, and the Knicks not really responding to that. So all those, whatever stat you're looking at, like that, if they encompass the LA game, that was probably the bulk of what you're seeing there. So we talked about, where the Knicks could align their players. There was a lot of Josh Hart, one passed away. So bringing Dante DiVincenzo more up in that slot area. So if that double comes, it's coming from the DiVincenzo man and not the Josh Hart defender. But also, like, talked a lot about the Lakers, how they are uniquely set up on the back line, especially with Davis and LeBron not having to worry about whoever the next five was and Precious Achiuwa, and really just loading up on that backside and just making things really hard. So when Brunson did kind of break that seal, or Hartenstein had to play at the rim, it just was really tough for those guys. So I think that'll be posted on the YouTube channel probably tomorrow. So you can see Benjy and I with film, stopping and starting and highlighting things and really sort of diving into where the Knicks went wrong in that Laker game the other night. So that should be fun. But yeah, it's some of the adjustments we did talk about in there, but it's just one big adjustment is obviously health. There's some major things that are just not going to be fixable when you have Precious Achiuwa as your four-man, a non-spacing five, and Josh Hart in the game. It's just going to make things very, very tough for them. But just keeping DiVincenzo one pass away is just one simple thing that you could do to make that change. And then obviously a lot of people talked about Deuce in for Josh Hart. That is also like try to maximize shooting. That's another potential thing you can sort of like change. That seems pretty easy, but we all know Thibs trusts Josh Hart more than anyone but Jalen Brunson right now of the healthy body. So that seems pretty far-fetched. But anything else, Benjy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely check out the film session. We broke it all down. One other thing is when they do run sets, run them correctly and execute them. Like if you're running a pin down for DiVincenzo, hit on the screen, run off the pin down tight if you're DiVincenzo to like actually create something. That's important. When you do get downhill 3-on-2, like if a cutter is there, hit him, right? Mm-hmm. Like kind of simple stuff like that. Even though it was going to be a struggle to score during that stretch, it doesn't mean that it had to go 7 minutes without scoring.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't gone 7 minutes without scoring, the defense was good enough. If there were just a couple of buckets sprinkled into a 7-minute stretch, they could have won the damn game. Like they really could have won the damn game. Like they could not score. So just a couple little things here and there to open things up. We discussed it on the film session. But yeah, a lot of it is kind of geometry on the floor. Where are you positioning your actual shooters? Where are the non-shooters? Where's the double coming from? How do I prevent the double from coming from one pass away? That kind of thing. All those things will help to generate offense off of the Brunson doubles. Thank you very much for the question.
Yeah, it's tough though. He's 6 foot.
True
Those
story.
Doubles really do impact him a little more. Sorry, JP, you can throw that next chat in there.
Hamdy's back. Hamdy, you're the man. See, this man's a man of contributions, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you, Hamdy. Final question. The OG was so in tune with how the coach wants to play, and we saw it with results on the court. Who would work best? Who would best work with Thibs?
I assume trade deadlines question.
Oh,
guys, you're kind of bringing in. They made the OG trade. I think he's sort of like who can come in here and sort of play what Thibs is, the Thibs style and make it sing.
Yeah, you know what? We've talked about Brogdon and where that fit, but I think on this one, I would, and you spoke a little bit about Bruce Brown. I think that's the guy that the coach probably wants, and I think that's the guy that fits best with the coach. He's another sturdy, long defender. He could guard multiple positions. He's tough. He's a proven winner. He checks all the boxes, right, for a Thibs guy. And I do wonder if kind of the strong interest in him is at least, to some extent driven by who the coach wants here and who they know the coach will play, right? Because they don't want another Cam Reddish situation, and they know he will play Bruce Brown.
Now, Thibs, I wonder if it's like we sort of and look, there's enough rumors here with Bruce Brown that there's a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
So this is coming from somewhere. I imagine Thibs is in the camp of like bringing him in, but I also like have heard Thibs talk enough about like how important like 3-pointer getting threes up is, and the percentage that you hit them and the corner threes and all those things that are more aligned with like how a modern offense operates. So I wonder if even Thibs is thinking like, all right, we bring in Bruce Brown. I'm playing Josh Hart. I'm not going to not play him. I have my 5-man that's not going to space my theoretical, gravitational 4-man is going to be out for the foreseeable future. Yes, OG's going to come back eventually. That'll help, but he is not a floor spacer above the break. He is a floor spacer in the corner. So that's limits his ability to sort of like really spread the floor. But I wonder if like we are theorizing that Bruce Brown is like this great Thibs fit. And I think he is, but I just isn't like you got to shoot the ball. Are we getting to the point where like there's too many? Is Thibs? Well, is he self-aware enough to know there's just too many Thibs guys?
Yeah.
Can you have does Thibs think there's so
many? And to your point, I think again, like we often underrate the extent to which Thibs cares about shooting. Thibs cares about shooting a lot. Now, Josh Hart, he cares a lot about the other things that Josh Hart does, to the point where he believes strongly that it compensates for his shooting, which is why, and sometimes I think over relies on Josh Hart for that reason. Understanding that, otherwise, like there's no question Thibs cares a ton about the shooting on the floor. Like he emphasizes it. The Knicks have shot a ton of threes the last few years. They're not like some like ancient offense. They do generate threes. They do shoot a lot of them. They got Julius Randle, who was not a good shooter, to shoot like 13 threes every 2 seconds last year, right? That's like a volume thing. Like Thibs just wanted him to shoot the ball. Mm-hmm. You see on the sideline, Thibs gets more upset about a guy passing up a three than he gets upset about anything else, right? So like, I'm not saying that Thibs doesn't value shooting. I just think he values the things that like a Josh Hart and a Bruce Brown does even more than shooting. Mm-hmm. Now, could you play Bruce Brown and Josh Hart together? I wouldn't want them to. I would actually hope that Bruce Brown could serve as some Josh Hart insurance, where if he's shooting like he's shooting now, and like he gets quasi unplayable in the playoffs, which kind of happened last year against Miami, mm-hmm. Bruce Brown's a better option to do some of the things that Hart does, but at least be credible as a 3-point shooter that you can't literally ignore like the Lakers did last night. Like teams aren't going to he's not going to have a ton of gravity, but like the extent to which teams ignore Hart, I don't think applies to Brown. I don't think.
I agree with you. Yeah. Also because I think Brown is a little more live with the ball. Floater is good.
Floater's really good. Yeah.
You probably make a pass. There's just more, you can't, it's like the whole theory about like there's a lot of like, if you take a non-shooter and you just leave them alone, you're just giving them that runway to make plays. And if they have decent handle and they have a good spatial awareness and they have a good in-between game, I feel like you just need to close.
I think Hart's okay. I mean, he wasn't good last night at it. I think he's okay. He gets to that floater sometimes and he can draw contact on his drives, but like Brown's better at it, right? I mean, yeah. I don't think there's any doubt. So yeah, I mean, to me, like the Brown move would be like Hart insurance, which I think is a good idea. But I don't know if Thibs is going to handle it that way. And if like we start seeing Brown, Hart, Randle minutes, God help Jalen Brunson and the spacing the spacing conundrum that's going to create. So we'll
see. So I feel like he's got to know this. And I feel like there's always like diminishing returns with anything. And I feel like you like try to like have this identity of guys that are going to do the things that sort of like make up for the lack of shooting. And it's all the Josh Hart stuff we talked about in the Bruce Brown stuff. There's diminishing returns on those things. So I just feel like he's smart enough to know that's part of the deal. So I do wonder if he's also questioning that. And maybe that's part of like why the Grimes report came out. I think it was today or yesterday that they want more of a high level guy if they're going to trade him, because I think they have to know that his shooting, even though he probably doesn't make as many shots as like fans want, but he's still like a guy teams guard, and he's a great shooter from the left side of the court. I don't know. It feels like the Brown thing, there's been so much smoke that I just feel like there could be some posturing there. Like I'm becoming, maybe this is just me hoping this is the case, but just wondering if there's a little bit of like gamesmanship happening here. Like obviously the Knicks are going to try to get Bruce Brown, and because and their Knicks are wanting that out there to maybe, play the gamesmanship. I don't know. There's something there that just feels off to me because of how the Knicks are currently constructed.
Yep, we shall see. Thanks again, Hemdy, for all of your contributions and questions. We appreciate it, buddy.
Yes, thank you so much.
We got any more here, JP, or is that it? All right, I think that's it then. Well, thank you all. Oh, no, we got another question. Okay. JG asks, question/thoughts. Collin Sexton can certainly be a pest and annoy opponents' fans, but his defense and ability to get to the paint are certainly qualities that Thibs would like. Should MYK go for him? We discussed it a bit already, but DJ, you can touch on it quickly if you'd like.
Yeah. So I think is for me personally, and I think some of the impact metrics suggest this. Like I think the defense he presents as a guy that defends, but I feel like the impact has just always been poor, even going back to his college days. There's a lot of it to me. And I know this is my bias of what I think of him as a defender, just comes off as little showy, and maybe the impact is not there. Really good offensive player, as a downhill rim threat, phenomenal. As a shooter, just continues to get better, just really good off the catch. But again, I don't think you can play him with Brunson. I don't think Thibs will play him with Brunson. So there you're looking at a very limited amount of minutes for a guy you're going to have to trade real stuff for. Grimes, picks, like what? I mean, they're not going to just like hand him over for 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, he doesn't feel like the right fit for this Knicks roster, but he's a good player. He's improved every year. It feels like, I do push back on the defense. I just don't think personally it's high level. But certainly I think that there seems to be an appetite to maybe move him or consider that, and a guy that should help someone, just doesn't feel like the Knicks are that team.
Cool. I agree. I'm with you. All right, Justin, anything left? All right, we got one more here from Big B. Great name.
Oh, love this question.
Who has better foot? I'll let you take it then. Who has better footwork, JB or Kyrie, and why? Ooh, this is a good one for the detail junkie right here.
Yeah,
let's hear it, DJ.
I will say Kyrie. I will say Kyrie is better waist up, English as a finisher.
The question is footwork, DJ.
I'm working my way to that. just give me a give me a second. As I'm trying. I'm like Jalen. I got to string the possession out. Get my dribbles in.
We've been together for like 2 straight hours here, man. It's getting testy in here.
But yeah, no, better footwork. It's Brunson, and I feel like especially in the mid range, it's like he can up and under, step through. He's guarded, and then all of a sudden, like he's wide open, and the guy is 3 feet in another direction because he made this like step through off the foot that you think is a travel, but technically it's not. And it's like 10% of the players in the league know that it's not a travel, and he uses it all the time. And just his footwork is elite of elite. Kyrie is amazing, but I feel like Kyrie is better in other areas of the game, especially like the finishing and things of that nature. But in terms of just footwork, I think JB is a touch better, though Kyrie in his own right is phenomenal as well. But for my money, Brunson there's no one better right now in terms of that specific skill in the league, right? I mean, there isn't for his size to be able to score the way he does in the painted area. It speaks to that footwork, his ability to get open and tight windows, just second to none. Thank you, Big B.
Yeah, look, Stan Van Gundy said it. Evan Fournier said it today on Twitter. I saw like JB's the best player off 2 feet in the league right now, and that includes post players, bigs. Like he's the best. I mean, Jokic is pretty damn good too, but I think Brunson is the best. Like the combination of moves, how much to your point, how much separation he creates with his pivots. Off of 2 feet, there's no one in the world right now better than Jalen Brunson. It's interesting. Like Kyrie, it kind of depends on how you define foot. I mean, I think the answer is JB. Kyrie off of 1 foot, or like kind of the way he can create Euro steps, the way he can get to his layup package off of different angles. Like it's almost 2 foot versus 1 foot. Like Kyrie gets to the layups in kind of crazy ways that are so creative. Like he's always been one of the most creative players to ever do it. Just in a very different way. Like he doesn't, like Kyrie has a nice like little mid post game fadeaways, like, but not quite like with the complexity of Brunson's. But Kyrie does some amazing things, like getting from the dribble to the gather to a layup that are extremely unique. So to some extent, how you define footwork, I would say JB more traditionally is like, that's footwork, like post moves, pivots, like that kind of thing. And, in that sense, he's definitely the answer, but I do want to shout out kind of what Kyrie's able to do, different elements, but like from the dribble, gather, kind of playing with the gather, and then to different combination of steps, Euro steps, decels, all that, which JB has too a little bit, but Kyrie really has mastered. I do want to shout that out.
Yeah, but it's a good, I love those sort of like really niche questions there. So Big B, thank you for that.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, this was fun.
This was awesome. All right. Thank you all really for coming in. I know we had a nice, I think probably a record amount of people in here checking it out. Hope you all enjoyed the X's and O's Knicks Film School podcast live stream extravaganza. Thanks for tuning in. And please, a reminder to like and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening on the podcast feed, leave a 5-star rating. That stuff really helps. Look, you have the established anchor shows, right? You got the post games and you got John and Jeremy. Like, yeah, we know you listen to those. This one's, we're still upstarts, right? So it really helps us a lot if you can leave a 5-star rating and tell the world that we're good at what we do, because we love doing it. We want to keep doing it. Just a reminder as well. We did break down the last 7 minutes of the Laker game on film just before we jumped on this live stream. It's going to go up on YouTube either late tonight or tomorrow morning. So please check that out. I think you guys will really enjoy it. If you enjoyed our discussion here, you'll enjoy that just as much, if not more. It's kind of into the nitty gritty of what the Knicks can do positionally, geometrically on the floor when they double Brunson, and how it's going to be really relevant in the game tomorrow night, because the whole league watches tape. They saw what happened in that fourth quarter. They're going to try to emulate it. So worth checking that out as well. Follow us, our Twitter accounts, DJ, myself, the Knicks Film School, or our film threads that we put out after each and every single game that I think are super valuable learning tools. 99th Basketball, another guy who does that with us. DJ, anything else you want to shout out before we sign off?
No, you hit it all. We love doing this. We put a lot of work into it, but we do it because we love it. And it's a joy to be able to talk to you and really sort of like discuss things with the folks, the group of the community of Knicks Film School is really second to none. And when these questions are always phenomenal, and I learn as much as I'm kind of like as much as anything. So I just appreciate all you guys that really make this work, make this sing. And Benji, let's do it again soon.
Let's do it again soon. Thanks, Justin, for all your help as well. Peace, everybody.
See ya.